Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final meeting of 2025. I'm really happy to end our year with Stan. When Stan talks about travel, he makes me go on the iPad after he finishes and start planning, even if I do not go where he goes, but he just gives us ideas and gives the positive vibe. Stan is a former programmer and he's a chef. I know, Stan, you don't want me to say that, but they say he's a great chef, but he's an avid traveler. Stan, I don't want to take any of your time, so the mic is
Okay,
yours.
thank you. Hope I'm still coming through okay.
Yes.
Um, so, hello, everybody. Happy holidays. Um, I am a blind traveler. I consider myself blind, but I'm not totally blind. And in fairness, I have a tiny bit of vision, but not enough to see things like gate numbers in airports or Al Gonser. Now, there's a name I haven't heard in a while. I'm sorry. Voiceover is giving me more information than I need, perhaps. Anyway, um, so I consider myself, for all practical purposes, a blind traveler. I'm a cane user, but I will gladly talk to folks about traveling with their guide dogs because uh, I know a couple people who do travel with their guide dogs, and I uh, talk to them about issues they have and what sort of things they have to do. Um, I don't exactly have a full, we're going to hit this point or that point. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, explain where I go and how I set up trips. And then I want to open the floor for questions. I want to make sure that I get to the topics you want to hear about. Um, the main thing is that I've done some international travel. I've traveled a lot around the United States. Uh, of course, I take trains and planes, but I also do some cruising. I usually take one or two cruises a year. Um, and sometimes we do guided travel using a travel company. Sometimes we go on our own. For example, the trip we took in September this last year, we took a train from Union Station. We got there via Uber, and we traveled to New York, and we got on the Queen Mary 2. We went across the Atlantic to Southampton, England, where we got a cruise line provided bus to Heathrow Airport. We flew on Swiss Air with a connection in Zurich, and there's a story there I'll tell later. Uh, and we spent 5 days in Sicily. So it was a week across the Atlantic, 5 days in Sicily. Then we flew for one night in Athens so we could get on the Queen Anne, sail through the northern Mediterranean back to Southampton. And the day the Queen Anne arrived, the Queen Mary was departing to go back to New York. So we changed ships, got on the Queen Mary 2, another 7 days back across to New York, and then train back to Union Station and Uber back home. So that was my big trip for 2025. I also this year have been to Hawaii for 3 weeks, and of course, we fly there. Um, and my next big trip will be in February. I will be going to the bottom of the Baja Peninsula in Mexico to a little town called San Jose del Cabo. Um, the kinds of things I like to stress as a blind traveler is number one, do some preparation, and number two, do some things which minimize stress. So, for example, I always get a wheelchair in the airports. Why do I do this? Because it's not only easier on me, it's easier on my wife. Um, When she and I have to walk through airports, um, if I get cut off, that is, if people get between the two of us, then if I lose sight of her, which will happen almost immediately, then I sometimes am not following her properly. I could potentially go down the wrong passageway or what have you. And it makes her even more nervous than it makes me. Um, so, number one, it means that I'm going to get through security with the easiest and least amount of trouble. I'm going to get to my gate with the least amount of trouble. And more importantly, my traveling companion, my dear wife, doesn't go crazy worrying about me because that's really not her job. Just like I'm going to enjoy my travels and our quote unquote vacation, although I'm retired. So what? It's all a vacation, but it's not my job to increase her worry load. So I use a wheelchair. Yes, I can walk just fine. And no, I don't care if people see me in a wheelchair. 99.99999% of those people are never going to see me again. And even if they do, they're not going to know who I am. So it doesn't matter. Check your ego, use a wheelchair. You can set it up with your, if you fly a particular airline most often, you can make it part of your profile that you are a blind traveler, and B, you tend to like to have a wheelchair in the airport. It's particularly important, in my opinion, when you get to your destination and it's an airport you've never been to, particularly if it's a connecting airport. So, for example, if you're flying through O'Hare and you have a tight connection, you might not make it. So you have to the trust me, the wheelchair provider will get you to your gate on time. And I know this is true because I'm going to tell my Zurich story now. The plane that we had on our first leg of the journey leaving Heathrow left late. When we landed in Zurich, we had 45 minutes, just barely, probably closer to 40 minutes to make the connecting flight from Zurich to Catania, Sicily. That plane was in another terminal. The gentleman that came and took me in the wheelchair, the first thing he did is he called the gate agent at the gate where we were going and said, I have a blind passenger. I have him in a wheelchair. We are coming. Wait for us, please. Then he literally ran through two terminal, the first terminal and then through the second terminal. My wife was running beside us. It was it was amazing, and I'm really proud of my wife. She kept up, and this was a young man, and he's pushing me. And for those who have never met me in person, I'm not a small person. Um, so this gentleman worked his tail off, to be blunt about it, got us there on time. We literally pulled up to the um, boarding counter and they said, the door is not closed yet. We were waiting for you, but you're not late. You know, if you'd have been a regular passenger, you'd have gotten here just on time. So, uh, and believe me, if my wife and I had been doing it, we would not have made it, even though, sure, we could have run through that airport. But as a blind person, I don't want to be running through an airport because I will run into somebody. And as soon as that happens, uh, you're already going to be late. Because number one, that's embarrassing. You have to talk to that other person, explain you're blind, whatever has to happen. So that's my first thing. You have to do things that minimize your stress, and minimize the stress if you're going with a traveling companion. So that also means I tend to get to the airport extra early all the time, even though I fly out of Dulles all the time and I know about how long it's going to take to go through, get to the airline gate, go through security, and then get to the departure gate. I still get there early because I'd rather sit there for half an hour and read a book or a magazine article, uh, on my iPhone with some headphones than be stressing because I might be delayed to the point where I can't get on the airplane uh, when I want to or on time. Next thing is because you can put in your travel profile that you're blind and you have therefore a medical exemption, you are entitled to pre-board the aircraft. Always do that if you get there on time, because number one, it does give you a little more time to navigate down the jetway. I don't have the wheelchair people take me onto the airplane. That isn't necessary. Once I get to the gate, I can navigate the jetway, and with either my wife's help or the help of the flight attendants, I can find my seat. Um, but boarding early means I'm not jostling with other passengers. I don't have to worry that, oh, I didn't see that person in front of me and I tripped over their bag. And a real benefit, you will almost always be able to store your carry-on luggage in the overhead bin because you're among the first few people to get on the airplane. And that's a big plus. So you're not stuck in the situation where your overhead bin baggage is many seats away from you, or even worse, you're getting on so late that there's no bin space left, and they take your bag and check it. Um, I always, if I check suitcases, but you don't want to have to be rummaging through your bag and getting out any medications you have or your battery pack that can't get checked, all those things. So it's nice to get on the airplane early. You're entitled to that benefit. Use it. The other thing I do is I always get an aisle seat. I pay for economy plus because I'm tall, and I always, no matter what, I book an aisle seat. And if I can't figure out how to do it online, I call the airline's accessibility line. And if you fly, let's say as I do, you fly United all the time, there's a separate accessibility number that you can call. And you explain to them, I'm blind. And actually, they don't really, once I tell them I'm Stan Gowin, they see my profile and they see that I am. And you can actually ask the agent when you talk to them and say, I've booked this flight to such and such, and here's my booking number. Can you make sure I get an aisle seat? And every time I've done that, asked for that, they've done it for me. So another benefit of having being blind in your airline profile. And it's a good argument for flying one airline or maybe two airlines more often than others. Um, because those kinds of things, again, they reduce your stress, they make the trip go more smoothly. Uh, I do the same thing when I take a train. I look for the red caps, and now you can, if you go by yourself, you can use um, Be My Eyes in Union Station. They have support so that you will can get an Amtrak representative looking through the camera on your phone to help guide you through Union Station to find the area where the red caps are located. I use the red caps for the same reason that I use get a wheelchair um, at airports. I don't get a wheelchair at a train station, but I want help with my luggage and I want guidance when I go out of the terminal down to the track to get on the train. I know that it's possible for blind people to navigate train tracks, um, but it's a noisy, chaotic environment. And even if you have someone helping you, say, over the phone with Be My Eyes, it's easy to get confused when it's noisy and maybe you can't hear them through your earphone as well. And it's not the safest environment to be in. If you did make a misstep, it could be tragic. It could even be fatal. So I'd rather have help from the red cap so that I don't have to worry about those things. Um, on cruise ships, getting on board cruise ships, um, again, I have it in my profile that I'm blind. And what that usually allows me to do is board fairly soon after I get to the departure terminal. Um, yes, they tend to board cruise ships by the people that get priority or the people that have the most cruise miles or cruise points. But because I'm blind and I see my white cane, they usually, as soon as the first class passengers, if you will, get on board, they'll come and let my wife and I board. And it's the same sort of thing. You have usually a big gangway to go up and that kind of thing. And it just means you're not competing with so many jostling people to get on board the ship. And I'll have, if people are interested, I have some tips on how to navigate around a ship and find your way. And I have become a big fan of cruising because on good cruise lines, the sea days are as interesting and as much fun as the activity days, but also um, it's a great way to see places in the world without having to pack and unpack your suitcase every other day when you get on a tour bus or whatever and go from city to city, maybe in Europe or what have you. But I know a lot of blind people who enjoy cruises, and I'm here to say that I have learned to really enjoy them and like to do, as I said before, one or two cruises a year. Um, it's relaxing, and in destinations like Alaska, you get to see things from a cruise ship you cannot see any other way. So that kind of thing is really nice. So the first thing I want to do right now is stop and see if people have questions.
If you could unmute yourself if you have a question. And while people do that, I have a question from a friend, Stan. If you are using a wheelchair and you are at the airport and the flight gets canceled, what will they do? How helpful are they in such cases?
The best thing they can do is take you to the airline information desk, the closest one, because what people need to remember is the folks that are pushing the wheelchairs don't work for the airlines. And that's a critical distinction because they can't really provide you support with interfacing with the airlines. Um, and when your flight gets canceled, the best thing to do is actually to call the airline on your phone and work with them to get you rebooked or rescheduled or what have you. Because it's not necessarily very helpful because likelihood is you're going to end up going to that service desk and you're going to be 12th or 14th or 20th in line. And sometimes it's just quicker to grab. And I would call the accessibility line, not the airline's normal line, because of course, just like everybody's getting in that service desk line, they're all calling the normal airline line. So by virtue of you having that accessibility number in your contacts and already having in your profile that you are blind and therefore you have a medical reason to make that call, you can often cut through a lot of, I don't want to call it red tape, but a lot of rigmarole to get to somebody who can help you soonest.
And do all airlines have an accessibility
The
number?
major ones
Okay.
do. I know United does, Delta
Yeah.
does, America does,
Mhm.
Swiss Air does, um, British Airways does.
Mm.
Um, I actually got accessibility help when I booked my Ryanair flight from Catania, Sicily to Athens to get that second leg of my cruise. But I can't remember whether I called a specific number or was transferred there. I kind of think I was transferred to it. I certainly don't have a Ryanair accessibility number in my contacts.
Okay. So we have Debbie and then Janice.
Hi, thank you for this Zoom. This is Debbie. Would you be willing to share the accessibility line for United?
I will provide it to Tara so that she can send it out in an email. How would that be?
Thank you.
Yeah. I will send it out with a recording with other information Stan will be giving us.
And it's possible to, I just want to say real quick, it's possible to Google, if you're using Google or some other search engine, the accessibility numbers for a specific airline, because I don't have all of them. I could give you United, but I don't know the Delta and the American and what have you.
Janice?
Hi. So, I have a comment and a question. So, regarding the wheelchair, I think this is one of the large debates in the visually impaired community because some people are like, no, I'm going to walk, and then, I do understand the ease of using the wheelchair. Since you gave this presentation the last time, I made my first solo trip across country. I flew to Seattle by myself. And I use the wheelchair. And it's a mental thing to get over, that I really don't need this wheelchair. You just feel weird because you're riding in a wheelchair. But I did have circumstances like you're saying where if I hadn't been with someone to get me through the airport, I might have missed a flight. So I agree with you. Just check your pride at the at the desk and just get in the chair. It's easier. Um, and my question was specifically, have you traveled on Viking? And if so, how was it different than maybe some of the other cruise lines?
I have not personally traveled on Viking. It's on my to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a river cruise. I want to take all the that right. My wife and I sort of prioritize our travel. We
Mm-hmm.
travel a lot, but it's not like we can do everything all at once. So um, I know of people who have taken Viking cruises and love them. I think the
Mm-hmm.
closest experience I've had to Viking is uh, in the summer of 2023. I took a Smithsonian cruise on the Great Lakes on a Punant ship. So there were only 147 passengers, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a small ship because it's on the Great Lakes, not on the ocean. And
Mm-hmm.
so it would have been kind of an equivalent size to a typical Viking ship, maybe even
Mm-hmm.
smaller, that does river cruises. And what I appreciated about that was there was a lot more attention from more of the crew members, although uh, the cruise lines I tend to use now, I don't find inattentiveness to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, I mean, everybody will. Sorry, my voiceover just came on and I wasn't
Yes.
sure. Okay, Tara sent out the message about the cruise line number on the Zoom. So I'm sure Viking is wonderful. I just haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sandy?
Hi, Stan.
Hi, Sandy.
I'm talking to you through Zoom, through the satellites,
Outstanding.
through the internet. We could string orange juice cans and a string between our houses and talk, but I just
Yes, we could.
I just wanted to chime in with a suggestion for folks who use Be My Eyes. Their service directory, if you scroll down to travel, they do have several of the big airlines and a couple of the probably you don't use them, Stan, big cruise ships like Carnival Cruise, and I didn't see um, Viking River cruises on it, but those have direct phone lines for people with vision impairment. But I was going to check, but then I flipped out of the screen. They may not be open 24/7. But it's worth a try to go through Be My Eyes and look up phone numbers for travel airlines, and they have Amtrak on there, and so it's a good handy resource if you're a Be My Eyes user.
It certainly is. I've used it now at Union Station to find the red cap people, which is if I had my wife with me, but I said I have to try this. I know, Sandy, when you tried it, when we first mentioned it, it was a bit bumpy. I think you said it seemed to work a little bit better when I tried it in September.
Yeah, I was trying to find a era connection to help me navigate, but the red caps, as soon as they spotted me and I asked a question, they were very, very helpful.
I find the red caps at Union Station and in New York to be among the friendliest people for getting help, both for call it blindness or even people who just have mobility issues. They are almost always go way above and beyond. So avail
I agree,
yourselves.
and I would add Philadelphia in there too. They're very.
And I've traveled into Philadelphia Station, and I agree with that, but I haven't done it in a number of years. So um, that's good. Um, the other thing I want to say is I do use Be My Eyes when I go to Hilton hotels, because Hilton also um, provides support through the Be My Eyes app, and you get an agent, and not only can she or he help you find the check-in desk in the lobby, find the elevators. But what I find particularly helpful is when I get into the room, I get the agent on my iPhone and I just start scanning the room and they tell me, okay, that's the television. And I walk toward it and they help me make sure. And then I know, pardon me, the television remote is, where the dresser is, how the beds are laid out, what the arrangement of the shampoo and conditioner and body wash is in the shower, because they're always not arranged this, they're always different, and there's no braille on them usually. So things like that. And they will help you, for example, change the temperature on the thermostat. If, and I tested this, I didn't actually use it for this, but I said, um, can you tell me if because have, where my hat is in the room? Because I took my hat off before I had them, and they were able to identify it. This was just a test. But the point is, if I were traveling by myself and I wasn't sure on the day I'm going to check out, I found all of my belongings in the room, I would have no hesitation calling one of these agents and asking them to help me. Or if I dropped something on the floor, just like you might use Era or Be My Eyes at home, um, I would have no problem calling an agent and saying, I dropped such and such on the floor. Can you help me find it? Sure, I try to be an intentional packer and make sure I know where everything is, but sometimes things get mislaid. So that's a great tip.
Sorry, Stan. We have Jillian. You're muted, Jillian. Yeah.
Thank you for providing this Zoom. I just had a couple of added resources. I also travel quite a bit independently and also with my husband at times. And I recently traveled to Australia by myself. And one of the things that was helpful to me was connecting with local adaptive groups. So like I'm a member of Achilles in Washington, D.C., and so I reached out to the chapter there, and met up with them. I also, did like a Sydney Harbor, or with the Sydney Opera House, I did like the adaptive tour. So a lot of like, to your point of pre-planning stuff, there's a lot of resources in especially bigger cities, when traveling, that have adaptive services that you can tap into. One of the other things and it's something I'm trying to navigate right now because I'm in Florida, where there's no public transit, is transferring my Metro access to this area so that I can get around a little bit easier, just not having to rely on Ubers all the time. So that's just another resource or piece of information. And then lastly, I'm taking a cruise in March with my family. And one of the benefits I got with calling the accessibility line was getting an upgrade to a bigger room without having to pay the price for it because, I met the disability qualification. So if you are taking a cruise, that could be an added bonus if you just, kind of do the legwork beforehand.
Those are
Great.
Those are excellent suggestions. I have successfully used Metro Access in other cities. You do have to do the paperwork and legwork way ahead of time, um, in order to get that to set up, because not only does it take time for the local Metro Access to process it, but the one at your destination may take some time to process it and get back to you. But it does work, and I can recommend it if you are a Metro Access user. So that's a great thought. I don't know about getting a room upgrade. I think that would depend on the cruise line and availability, but that's a good thought. Um, my advice, additional advice for cruising, is use your, play, as my wife says, the blind card, but use it as a medical reason to get the basic Wi-Fi on the cruise for free. I have found that I can do that. And if I am going to use AI, say, or seeing AI, or Be My Eyes using the AI to help me navigate the ship or read menus or anything like that, you have to have Wi-Fi. You do not want to use cellular on a cruise ship because it is unbelievably expensive, even more expensive than the Wi-Fi. Plus, the coverage is so spotty that although I think one could use Ira or Be My Eyes while the ship is in port to help you navigate, once you get out to sea, so to speak, or even on some rivers, I would think, then the telephone connected services would not be available to you.
So for the room upgrade, so it's with Royal Caribbean, and it is it's designated as an ADA room, but it really just means it's like one of their larger rooms. So
Well, do
yeah,
they have, sorry to interrupt, but so is the bathroom arranged differently so it can handle a wheelchair? I mean, that's not a problem. That's really, that's kind of important if you really needed it.
yeah, that's a good question. I don't use I use a
Well,
white cane, so like it wasn't necessarily that I was even looking for the room upgrade. They were just like, "Oh, we'll provide you one." And I said, "Sure, I'll take that." Like
yeah, that's nice. That is really nice. The
yeah,
reason that I ask is that, for example, the sink would be arranged in such a way that a person could get a wheelchair under it, you
right.
know. And uh, I was just curious because I've not actually tried to do this. I've certainly seen ADA hotel rooms and that sort of thing, and sometimes I've been booked into those without even asking. Um,
Hmm.
but I was curious about the cruise ship, but that's okay. That's worth. I certainly think any kind of advantage we can get is worthwhile. I'm not one of these people that feels, oh, I want to be exactly like everybody else. Because frankly, to be honest, we are not exactly like everybody else. And if you can get some kind of benefit that makes your life easier or makes your life less stressful, I think you should take it.
I will definitely take advantage of the Wi-Fi perk as well. See if I can. And my husband also says, "Can you play the blind card once in a while? Because it gets us into places." So uh,
That's also true.
I don't. I guess I have too much pride. I like to play fair and but yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. I think Debbie was unmuted. Debbie, do you have a question or you just kept?
I
Oh,
wanted to make a comment, if that's okay.
go
Sure.
ahead.
We were recently, or last fall, we were in France and we took several rides on the French national train system. And I put in for getting accessibility assistant who comes to guide you when you get to when you get to the train station. They guide you to your seat in the train, and when you get to your destination, they guide you off of the train to where you want to go in the station. I have to specify some caveats about the two times I used it because the people were not really trained to assist. I have low vision. Um, so they were not really trained to assist low vision or blind people, because they didn't alert me to the gap, let's say, when I went from the train onto the platform, or the fact there was, the steps were starting when you went from the upper level to the lower level. So you have to be they were helpful, but you have to be very careful with them. Take their arm, tell them in advance what you need to be alerted to. Fortunately, I was also traveling with other sighted people who could tell me what was going on also. The advantage of it is they do help you carry your luggage up the stairs. They also, at the destination, in Paris, in a train station none of us knew, they found the elevator. They got us a taxi, went to the front of the line. So there are some benefits of using these people, but be careful on because they are not trained in accessibility for low vision and blind people.
Thanks.
you,
That's
Debbie.
good to know. I've traveled trains in Italy and Sicily, and I haven't thought about asking for special help. And well, this last trip, the reason is that our train travel was sort of spontaneous. We had a day on our own, and the trip provider had given us all these instructions for taking the trains for various places, and we just did it on our own. But yeah, that's a good plan.
Stan, we don't have any other questions for the time being, but if you could continue with your tips for travel.
I wanted to talk about another thing that we did, because in our big trip last September, for those who joined late, we took a cruise from New York to Southampton, then flew from Heathrow to Zurich, and then from Zurich to Catania, Sicily. We spent 5 nights in Sicily. And because that trip was so compressed, we hired a trip planner who is in Sicily. We found him on the internet because we were looking at train schedules, because my wife and I love trains. So when we can go somewhere and have the time, we like to take the local trains just to see how they are. And we had booked our hotel months and months in advance, and it was on the north slope of Mount Etna. It was absolutely gorgeous. There were vineyards and olive groves and everything all around. The mountain is steaming in the distance. We were 3 kilometers from the closest town, and it was not walkable. And the reason it wasn't is that we were on the side of the mountain, and the roads do all these switchbacks where they, curve back and forth on themselves. And even the drivers, when they'd get to certain points on these switchbacks, would honk their horns because they couldn't see oncoming traffic. So my wife and I said, that's a sighted person shouldn't walk that. And we actually heard someone at the front desk explaining to another guest, no, we don't recommend you walk to the town. So the point was, this trip planner booked all our restaurant reservations. He booked all of our transportation. He booked 2 private tours, one in Catania and one in Syracuse. And the woman who did the tour in Syracuse understood her brief, because when we were looking at monuments and so on, the Greek monuments in Syracuse, she took my hands and arranged my fingers and whatnot. So I got the exact shape of the amphitheater. She always made sure that I could find the relief maps, which in Italy and Sicily, they have lots and lots of tactile maps in public places. Now, the Braille that's on them is in Italian, so I'm not so good at that. But just the fact that one can get a tactile map of something that you're looking at as a blind person is wonderful. Sure, I can see a tiny bit, so I can see, okay, I can see that, all right, there's an amphitheater there, and there are steps and so on in the distance. Can't make out a lot of detail, but I can see that much. But to be able to feel all of that and feel how it's shaped, and where the various parts of it were, like where the stage would have been when they had given the performances and all of that sort of thing was really great. And the other benefit was in both cities, my wife and I walked through the local fish markets, which are a big deal in Sicily. That's kind of like our farmers markets. And one of the best things is because I was blind, even though there are signs everywhere in Italian, don't touch, she would talk to the different vendors, and I was able to handle the different fruit and vegetables. You know, I didn't touch the fish or the uh, um, tomato paste that was mounded up on the tables, which is how they do it. And it also got me some really nice samples that we were able to get of the fish and other things that my wife and I were able to try. And I know they were giving out samples to anyone who asked, but I think that what they gave us could have been our entire lunch. That was nice. But it was great because, for one thing, as soon as we landed in Catania, there was someone there looking for us so that he met us in the airport, took care of our luggage, got us onto the vehicle, drove us to the hotel, made sure the luggage was taken up to where the other people inside the hotel could take it, because where they parked the cars was some distance to the entrance to the hotel. Just little things like that. Trip planners can be expensive. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but we loved it. It meant that my wife and I didn't have to do anything but show up where the plan said we were to show up, and we were taken care of. It was wonderful. And the private tours of the cities were really entertaining, educational, and just great. It really improved those 5 days in Sicily for us.
Stan, and you're going to Mexico, or you
Yes.
usually go? How accessible that is?
First of all, I have only been to this one place in Mexico, and it's down at the bottom of the Baja Peninsula. There's a wonderful resort we stay in. The resort has its own water desalination. The staff is extremely attentive. So while I'm on the resort using my cane, if I make a wrong turn, there's somebody there, you know, Senor, how can I help you? You know, right away. And the first couple times I went to the resort, it's a big resort. It's not one of these giant resorts with lots and lots of towers, but it has 4 swimming pools and 4 restaurants and a couple of different bars. So it's complicated. And there are places where you go up steps and you go down steps to get to where you want to go. So I needed to learn it, and I didn't, you know, the couple of things I got wrong the first few times I did it, there was someone to help. There was good help finding tables in the restaurants and that sort of thing. When we landed in Cabo San Lucas, there was basically that airport is pretty simple. But I did have it that I was blind, and rather than I did get a wheelchair, but they insisted. I almost think they've got an insurance situation on their hands. And so when we got off the airplane, they put me on a wheelchair and took me into the terminal. And I think it was good because when we were going toward the terminal, we were on the tarmac and there were 2 airplanes there. And I wouldn't have wanted to get too close to either airplane at the wrong time. So it was fine. The airport itself was simple. And essentially, when you get outside the airport, when we book to this resort, we always say we need transportation from the airport to the resort. And they always arrange, you know, you pay a fee, but they always arrange it, book it for you. And they basically gave me really good instructions on, you come out of the terminal and you cross one street and there's a great big giant orange tent. And that tent I could actually see. It was bright enough orange I could see it. But if I'd been totally blind, it would have been easy for me to say, I need to go to the big orange tent. And I sure I could have found my way there with a little help. And then getting around in the town itself, there are taxis. The resort negotiates the price of the taxi for you. You don't have to worry about that. They check you out in the taxi. They take the cab number, the driver name, your names, and then when you come back, they check you back in. So it's very safe. And they also have Uber. And if you're proficient with the Uber app that we use here in the United States, it's the same app. It's just as accessible. And I had no trouble getting Ubers to get around either.
Okay.
Now,
Any
what
questions? Yeah, sorry, Stan, go ahead.
What I do have trouble with is using the GPS because, when VoiceOver reads the Mexican or Italian or whatever street names, that's kind of hard to figure out. So I'm a big fan of using Voice Vista overseas because that gives me more guidance where I'm not as dependent on the names of the streets. You get that audible guidance that, the beacon is off to your left, 700 yards or whatever. So I'm not as dependent on knowing exactly which street I'm on or which street I have to cross.
That's a good point. Liz?
Stan, yeah, thank you, Stan. This is very informative. I'm Liz Savage.
Hi, Liz.
Do you have any recommendations? Hi. Do you have any recommendations on tour companies or like Road Scholar, variation on a theme of that?
Yes.
That are sensitive or, are enriching their, tours for people who, I'm almost totally blind.
Sandy can speak to Road Scholar as well as myself. I've had an extremely good couple of experiences with Road Scholar, but I think it depends on the tour guides and what you're doing. When I did my Trains of New England tour on Road Scholar, they were very helpful. Plus, it was easy to engage the passengers. You got to know each other. You were all together for a number of days. And so, and of course, I had my wife and I had Davida Lures, which some people know, and her husband with us. But that was positive. I'm not so sure Sandy felt her Road Scholar tour was as positive, but she should speak to that. I will say other tours, for example, the Big Journey Company, which is in the UK, which I've used to tour Scotland and Northern England and also Italy and Sicily before. They were fantastic.
What's it called?
The Big Journey Company, and they're in the UK. But I know, and then the tour trip provider I used was called Discover Sicily. I think that was the name, but I'll look it up and make sure that Tara has it. But I also know there are tour companies out there now that have blind specific tours. There's a company in England that does this. I know that when I've talked to the people at Colette and told them that I'm blind, they say, we will give you some extra help. I haven't used them yet, so I don't know how good that is. But I think the main thing would be when you're searching for tour companies or what have you, and you're trying to figure out who to use, just talk to them and say, I'm visually impaired or I'm blind and I have these requirements. If I take a tour with you, what are you going to be able to do for me? How can you help me?
Sandy and then Tom.
Hi, yeah, this is Sandy. So I've only been on one Road Scholar trip with Effie Pagizis as my roomie. I think that they did pretty well. I think we sort of took them by surprise. The Road Scholar does have I'd say mostly older population of people going on their trips. But the youngsters who were the people on the Rhodes Scholar side, they were in their 20s. And I'm not sure that they had much experience with people who couldn't see well. But everybody was just very, very friendly. Like Stan said, it was a small group, maybe 25 people total. So you do get to know people, and they're very kind and helpful, and it was fine.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Tom Wright?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm traveling to Tokyo on ANA, and I just wonder if anybody has any experience with the going to Tokyo.
One of the YouTube videos that I've sent Tara a list of, I think it's Trains, Planes, and Canes. There's a short about being blind and traveling to Tokyo. I've not done it, but I definitely feel when are you going? How soon?
Probably early April or late March.
Okay, make sure you talk to the airlines. Are you doing a tour of any kind, or are you
No.
just okay?
No,
But you
going to visit my wife who's in a care home.
I understand.
So
Well, I would talk to the airlines right away and tell them that you're
Yeah.
blind and you're going to need help in the airports, and see if they have recommendations for
Okay.
people you can get in touch with in Japan when you land to help you navigate. They may be able to help. I'd certainly start there.
All right. Thank you.
Debbie?
One comment about traveling in Japan. I haven't traveled there myself, but a friend has, and she said that the public transit is very easy to navigate. So if you plan to take public transit, that's the only piece of information I have for you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you.
Debbie, you're unmuted.
Yes, I would like to find out if anybody has had experience with blindness or low vision and using overseas adventure travel.
Not personally, but I've heard good things. Aren't they the people that have a safari?
I don't know.
I think so. And I know there was a great article in, I think it was Atlantic, and there's a whole YouTube out there about a blind person who went on safari and what they did for him. And it was amazing.
Okay.
Makes me want to take a safari. My daughter has, and that was amazing for her, but she can see.
So, Stan, we have 7 more minutes. And I do not see any other questions for the time being.
Basically, there are some good travel podcasts and YouTubes out there. And not all of them are necessarily specifically aimed at the blind, but I know that Sam's The Blind Life has done several YouTubes on navigating airports and that kind of thing. There's also the one I mentioned. I think I don't know, it's Planes, Trains, and Canes. Those tend to be shorts, but there's a lot of stuff from a gentleman from the UK who is a blind traveler who apparently has traveled to almost every country in the world. And the other one I'm going to recommend is a woman. She is not specifically tailoring her.
That's me. Sorry, Stan.
That's all right. She's I'm going to turn off my voiceover. That'll
Okay, or I'll stop.
No.
Okay.
I turned it. It won't bother me. The last one is Sophia, the flight attendant, and she presents YouTube videos on how to travel as someone over the age of 60. And a lot of her advice is applicable to us as well. I think she's a little bit more alarmist than she needs to be, but then again, She's been a flight attendant for 15 plus years, and she's seen some things go horribly wrong. So I think that's another one that I've really enjoyed watching. So she has examples on the ways you can make sure you can get through the airport, how to get the best chance of getting a good airfare, and some of what the airlines try to do, handling your luggage, what to eat and drink on the airplane and not to eat and drink on the airplane. I found that fascinating. I don't want to get into all that because it isn't necessarily blindness related, but if you're willing to look up her YouTubes, they're worth watching. And she's also up to date on changing requirements. For example, the changing requirements for getting into Europe now. You have an extra layer you have to go through. You have to fill out this ETIS form ahead of time. It can't be done in the airport because it's totally automated, and it uses information from your passport to allow you to get into Europe. And you should do it at least a week ahead of time. And when we set up our trip for our September trip, we did it back in July. It was easy to do. The app was reasonably accessible. I'll have to look the app up and get that to Tara because I don't remember exactly what it's called. But the only thing I had my wife do is she had to take the pictures of the information they wanted from the passport to make sure that it was uploaded, and then it gets verified. And then they send you a code. And basically, when you get to your departing airport in the United States and you get to TSA, you have to show them that code, or they won't let you get on the airplane.
That's
because
good to know.
This is new just this year, just the second half of 2025 going forward. This is for Europe. The UK also has a system like that. They're not in the European Union anymore, so it's a separate system, but it works the same way. You have to get your passport uploaded and fill out information, and then they send you a code. What's good about it is I think the Europe one costs €7. The English, the UK one cost, I think it was £2 or £3. It's good for 3 or 4 years. So once you do it, if you're traveling to these places repeatedly, you don't have to do it multiple times, as long as you're within the time window. And when you do it, the European one's good for 3 years, and I think the UK one was good for 3 or 4 years. I don't remember exactly. So it's a little bit of extra aggravation, but at least it seems to be mostly accessible, and it's totally automated. You get the code back in an email, and you just save it. You can save it into your Apple Wallet or what have you to present when you get ready to go overseas.
Sandy, the last question or comment?
Well, a comment. One thing that popped into my mind that is available, an app that can help guide you through transportation or at museums. NaviLens, it's like navigate lens, NaviLens. It's a free app, and it's like a QR code, but it's color squares that you snap a picture on. And I'm pretty sure that it's rather pervasive in Spain because that's where the company that invented this originates. But I think it's popping up in transportation systems in other places in Europe too. Also in the United States too.
There are a few places in the United States. There are more in Europe, and you don't even have to take a picture. If your camera is open, you just sort of scan around. That's the beauty of it. And if there's a NaviLens placard, I want to call it that for want of a better term, the phone will pick up on it pretty quickly. You don't even have to aim it precisely. My advice, if you're thinking about NaviLens, is to get the app, and they have a list of all the countries and most of the places in the countries where the placards are installed. So you can see ahead of time whether it's going to work. I know there's some places in the UK. There's certainly places in Spain. I think there's a couple places in Switzerland. I didn't see any in Italy, but that doesn't mean there won't be or aren't any.
Tom, I see you are unmuted. Do you have any questions before we adjourn?
I was just wondering what the best source for magnifying eyeglasses is.
That's a little beyond the scope of this discussion. Tom.
Okay.
I'm
can-
sorry. Call
yeah.
Tara directly. She'll talk to you.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
email.
Call me, Tom, and we can
I'll
discuss
email
that.
Tara.
Okay, yeah, just email me and we can discuss that.
I have
Stan,
I
yeah.
have one last question, and someone mentioned it. What was the name of the tour group that you said it was Outward Bound Adventures?
Road Scholars?
Overseas adventure travel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I know several people who've taken trips with them that have been very, very good. However, they are not in the low vision blind category. That's all.
Okay.
There is a travel company, I will look it up, who basically specializes. They do 3 or 4 curated trips a year, usually cruises, but not always, where their model is you as a blind person get paired with a sighted person. And what they do is you pay full fare, and the sighted person who's a guide pays half fare for the trip as an incentive to get people to come and help the blind people. Of course, you can go as, if you have a traveling companion, you could possibly use that. I've talked to them. They sometimes, depending on what it is they're doing, they sometimes want to pair one sighted guide with more than one visually impaired person if they can do it, maybe 2 people with one if it would work. I have to get the name of that company. I do get emails, and just mind like a steel sieve right this second, I can't remember their name. So I'll send that to Tara when I look it up.
Thank you.
Stan, thank you very much. And it's so nice to end the year, or actually end the last meeting of the year with such, a bright and positive vibes. Thank you again, Stan, and thank you everyone for joining us. I wish you all a happy and healthy and peaceful new year.
And hey, get out there and travel. I think traveling is one of the most rewarding things we can do for ourselves and for others. Just because one is visually impaired does not mean one can't really enjoy travel.
So true.
Thank you so much. When will the recording be available, Tara?
Hopefully, if not this evening, tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.
Bye.
Ciao for now.